Welcome to the ESG Show. Imagine a world where nature and human ambitions are not at odds but in perfect harmony. Picture a business model where profit doesn't just fill our pockets, but enriches our lives, our health, our knowledge, our very existence. And now think of the rainforest, not just a resource to be exploited, but as a partner in this vision. Here, every tree, every drop of rain, every breath of fresh air is part of a sustainable cycle that fuels both our economy and our well being. This is not just a dream, it's a blueprint for the future. A future where nature and profit grow together, hand in hand, creating a legacy of abundance for generations to come. My name is Renée Smits, and I have the pleasure to welcome you to the ESG show of today on behalf of the guests and Michael. And Michael, at this point, I want to give back the stage to you and thank you for letting me introduce this.
Thank you very much, Renée, and welcome everyone to today's episode of the ESG Show, episode 47 of the ESG Show. And just for your information, in the comments section, we're covering 3 media stories today. And in the comments section, I've put links to all those 3 media stories. We've also working very closely with ESG Disclose with a product called the Knowledge Hub. And in the Knowledge Hub, we're breaking down every episode of the ESG show produced so far into clips, accessed via a menu system, which I think is a very quite a powerful tool, really, for getting to grips with ESG, and the link to that is also in the comments. And finally, in the comments section, I've also put a link to a recording of every episode so far on YouTube. So you can see all those links there in the comments. But on the show today, I thought it was time that we meet today's guests, and we have Nava Suryawan. Sorry, how do I pronounce that?
No, that was really good.
Oh, that's a surprise. Okay, so
thanks for having me on the show, Michael.
It's a pleasure. And whereabouts in the world are you today?
I am in Bali, Indonesia right now.
Great. Okay. Well, welcome. So Nava is a mother and green entrepreneur. She's Indonesian American born and raised in Bali, Indonesia. Upon completion of her bachelor's degree in physics at Reed College, Portland, Oregon, she explored the world and many of its natural wonders, meeting wise men and women along the way. Lessons learned and wisdoms gained led her to return to her mystical island of birth, where she has devoted her life to protecting the only rainforest left on the island. She's now building a regenerative agricultural business model that gives indigenous communities economic incentives to return to regenerative farming practices around the border of the rainforest, and empowers them to take on guardianship roles in the management of natural resources. Main products are organic coffee, vanilla, and medicinal herbs. So great to have you here, Nava. Can you just tell me a little bit about your regenerative agricultural business?
Well, really, the intention was always, after I realized that the path of pure sciences was not really what I was seeking. It was not offering the connection that I was looking for in life. It was a long journey to get to where I am now. But upon seeing the situations that are happening environmentally, socially on my island, I decided I needed to contribute something. I have this moment of a life on the face of this planet. So what was the most meaningful thing that I could contribute while I was around? And so the business actually happened quite organically. It grew out of the intention of wanting to protect our mountain home, which happens to be the home of the last rainforest on the island. And the source of a third of this island's water source. And so it took a few years of like observation, just keen observation of what actually was already here. What were the trends that were happening across the landscape? And what were the factors contributing to the slow but definite degradation of the environment here? And after a few years, I really understood. I understood the psychological landscape, the landscape itself. I understand what what was needed. I understood the statistics, but I really, truly didn't understand. Like, well, how? Where do I begin? How do I enter? How do I create something that answers all the needs before we can even talk about regeneration of the landscape? What are the people who tend to the land? What are their needs that are not being met? And so that's how the business model grew. And so it's quite simple. We have a collective and we offer free seedlings. Oh, sorry. So basically the answer came to me in one word, which was coffee. And for a while I was like, well, why coffee? And for it stopped me. I mean, it came to me, but it stopped me. And then I started to really deeply think about it. And this mountain area is a coffee growing area. And every single farmer, even though they might not be a coffee farmer, grows coffee on their land. And so that was the way in. That was the way to access the landscape. I had to become a coffee producer, and I had to pave the way for a different market for the farmers. And this is where we started. And we gave out 12,000 Arabica seedlings in January. And why this move towards Arabica? Because it used to be an Arabica region. And after the Green Revolution, it shifted to Robusta, which needs full sun. Arabica, in its natural habitat, is an understory of the rainforest. So we devised the way, how do we get more trees onto these plantations, existing coffee plantations? How do we reforest these existing plantations? And basically, farmers are in a position where they're not connected to the growing markets. They're only offered commodity markets. So where I saw we had an opportunity to pave a new path that connected them to the growing specialty coffee market that actually cares about how things are grown, cares about quality, cares about impact. And slowly, we are gaining the trust. This is the part that's taken the longest time, is developing the relationships on the ground that we have to prove ourselves, that we are really here to serve the people first and by serving the landscape. So this is how the coffee model began.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Nava. I'm just going to introduce Rune now. Please stay with us, and you'll be back again in a few minutes. Hello, Rune. How are you? Glad to have you back. Rune was on the show a few weeks ago, and you're in Norway, I believe.
Yes, I'm in Norway, in the middle of Norway, called Trondheim. And thank you again for having me on this great show.
Absolutely our pleasure. So Rune, you're going to have to pronounce me Røkke, is that?
Yeah, Røkke, yeah.
I seem to be getting quite close to my pronunciation. Sorry,
yeah,
what's coming over me. Rune Røkke is the founder of this one I don't know how to pronounce. You'll have to tell me then how to pronounce that.
Klimafinans in Norwegian, climate finance. Yeah, in English.
So he has an MSc in finance, 25 years of company assessments and project finance. It's now integrated with a 10-year deep passion on the unprecedented nature and climate-related financial risks and opportunities relevant for most business model strategies and company valuations. But Renée, you've also been involved in a rainforest project in Panama. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was some kind of a accident that I got into that project, and this was a large agriculture company that wanted to look at some areas they have been doing shrimp farming for a long time, and what is the potential of nature-based transition to of that shrimp farm, because the shrimps are sick all the time and it's a complicated production. And how can, and it was mangroves there before, and how can mangroves be the new business model for that area? So we started to investigate, and the mangrove is kind of a perfect carbon sink, and it's not only offsets, it removes and puts the CO2 deep inside the ground. So it's a perfect carbon removal asset, and it has a lot of other benefits as well, and it will be benefit in a lot of ways, both for the community and the nature and the ecosystem around these mangroves, that boost a lot by converting. So how do we get this profitable? Because I am a financial guy, and I know that that financial decisions are based on one thing, especially if the management are making the decision. That is the short-term profit. What is the short-term profit? Short-term profit, 1 year maximum, basically the next quarter, next month. So it's difficult to get into a project that will last for 25 or 30 years or 50 years or 100 years or forever. So how do that decision can be made profitable? And the carbon price is one, and the carbon market is one. So I've tried to study all the carbon markets, and it has been a lot of positive movements in the price direction. But in 2022, some kind of with a war, 2 wars actually, that have broken down all the carbon market, especially the nature-based carbon market is busting really. So it's from a really good path down to nearly zero. So that so too bad we got this project up to investment decision, but we decided to wait a little bit until the perceptions of and the attention towards ESG is stronger and more important. So that's a short version. And the mangrove is so powerful.
So the project's effectively on hold at the moment, waiting for the right moment. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Because right now, because the big issue is how does nature, how do we validate nature financially? Carbon is one thing. Yeah, we have some experience in the ETS and the different carbon markets, and it's a really highlight now in both the EU and the world on this carbon removal sphere, because we don't manage this 1.5 degree without a huge amount of restoring and using of carbon or of nature-based carbon removals and offsets.
Okay, thank you for that, Rune. Okay, Rune, so if you stay with us, we'll be calling you back shortly. I just need to introduce Arif. Hello, Arif. How are you today? And remind me, you're in Bali as well, I believe.
I am. The photo behind me is in Flores in East Indonesia, near the Komodo National Park, but I'm in Bali, Indonesia.
Okay, great. So Arif, I'm looking at your bio here, and there's an unfortunate gap in what I've written. So I've got written that Arif was raised by a passionate bamboo, and then I realised there was a space there, and it was raised by a passionate bamboo pioneer. So it's a good job I spotted that. But
I'm a bamboo.
Raised by a passionate bamboo pioneer, Linda Garland, who pioneered the work with bamboo's exceptional qualities for solving environmental and social issues. After starting a bamboo forestry business and co-authoring a book titled Towards Resilient Bamboo Forestry, Arif spent 11 years leading the Environmental Bamboo Foundation and has now moved to a new institution called the Bamboo Village Trust that aims to restore 400,000 hectares of degraded land with bamboo social agroforestry by 2030. Arif is a part of a growing movement of actors pushing for 10,000 bamboo villages in 9 nations globally, with a breakthrough strategy to tackle some of the world's most pressing issues, such as climate change, land degradation, while creating economic opportunities and social inclusion for rural communities. 10,000 bamboo villages would sequester 1 gigatons of CO2 every single year. This is the power of farmer-driven, nature-based solutions. This is the turbo-boosting power of agroforestry systems. So, so tell me, Arif, what is it about bamboo's exceptional qualities for solving environmental and social issues? Just tell me a little bit about what bamboo can offer. I think when I spoke to you before, you were wearing a bamboo shirt as well, so I'm very intrigued by that.
Yes. Well, today I'm wearing a batik shirt from the village where I come from, just north of Java. But bamboo is a giant grass, and I think the framing I'll give you today is bamboo's potential on degraded lands, of which there are 2.2 billion hectares of degraded lands globally, and 900 to 1 billion hectares is really straightforward for us to restore. So on those lands which are not doing so well, you have soil that's not doing so well. You have water that isn't controlled by ecosystems very well, so they flood and they cause erosion and they leach nutrients. And so these giant grasses, of which humans call bamboo, but really there's 1,200 to 2,700 species of these giant grasses that we have to call one name, bamboo. And they basically stitch up the topsoil, and the trunk of the tree in a bamboo is underground in the rhizomic network, and then what you see above the ground are branches. And why that's amazing is you have this shallow root which basically sucks up any rainwater runoff, pulls it into the soil, and then that allows that water to go down. So they say when you plant bamboo, you plant water, and water is key for life, right? And if you can plant a medium root and a deep root species, you can basically create a knitted hydrology of a reservoir under all that land that is now degraded. And that land needs water. And so bamboo can suck that water in and get it into the soil, stabilize those soils, build the carbon, build the nutritional base, and communities can benefit from it, right? And so then you have communities which harvest roughly 1/6 of the poles. So a typical beautiful clump of bamboo has about 40 poles, right? And you can harvest about 6 to 10 of them every single year. And then every single year that farmer household can get livelihood from that. And if you can value add that, let's say to a strip like the strips behind me, and treat them and dry them, you can actually make a really good livelihood. And so bamboo can turbo boost agroforestry systems to restore degraded lands across the globe, as long as you use the indigenous version of the giant grass. And we can basically synchronize farmers and giant grasses to bring back many ecosystems.
Okay, thanks for that, Arif. Now, you sent me a video the other day, and I thought it might be an idea if we quickly run that, which kind of supports what you just said, really. But it's a nice video, so I'm just going to quickly run that. It's only 60 seconds. That's quite short.
Currently, the world emits up to 40 billion tons of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere every year. Our vision is to take 1,000 bamboo villages here in Indonesia and expand that to 9 other countries that collectively will absorb and remove out of the atmosphere 1 billion tons of carbon dioxide every single year. Bamboo really does have something for everybody. The textile industry has a sustainable cotton alternative. The construction industry has a sustainable wood alternative. The energy industry has a new, rapidly renewable energy source. In the next 5 years, we can create 1,000 bamboo villages that empowers more than 1 million people to enter this restoration economy and restore 2 million hectares of degraded land.
Well, that's inspirational stuff. And the Bamboo Villages Trust, what's the sort of the plan? Do you have a sort of a long-term plan here?
Yes, thank you, Michael. So, the Bamboo Village Initiative actually preceded the trust. And so that worked in Indonesia for 1,000 bamboo villages. Now, the Bamboo Village Trust is looking at within Indonesia, but also beyond Indonesia. And we're currently working with 25 partners in 12 countries. And we're basically expanding this vision that we started here in Indonesia. So we are targeting 200 bamboo villages by 2030 to restore 400,000 hectares of degraded land and create a 2 to 3 megaton drawdown or carbon sequestration of CO2 every single year, and empower hundreds of thousands of farmers in that process, both husband and wife, men and women. The kids can work in these systems after school. Grandparents can get involved. It really does take a village, ecologically, socially, and economically, to create what we call a restoration economy. And actually, we have more than 4 billion people around the world who actually know and have a direct or indirect relationship to these landscapes that could be rekindled and strengthened. And so that's really what we want to do.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Arif. That all sounds pretty amazing. If I'm going to move on to Renée now, but don't go away. We'll be talking to you again shortly. But Renée, nice to see you back again. Don't need to. I know you've already said something, but I thought I would quickly read out your bio. So Renée Smits was born into a legacy of environmental stewardship and a sustainability expert, an entrepreneur. She's a sustainability expert and entrepreneur dedicated to transforming the rainforest into a thriving, profitable ecosystem by harnessing the wisdom of nature, the richness of culture, and the power of innovation. So Renée, just tell me a little bit. So I believe you kind of cross both worlds, the bustle of the business world and the rainforest as well. How is that? How is that for you? How's that going?
How's that? Well, at this point, I'm really thankful for that, but it wasn't always like that. Like as a child, you don't really realize what you're in, so it is kind of what it is. But like, and then again, I was a really rebellious teenager, to be honest. I really had to figure out what my word was. But it does make me feel really thankful that I have this legacy where I was born into. And the older you get, like by the years, you get to experience how valuable that actually is. And at one point, like I had to go my own way. And I think that's how I ended up in banking and getting the corporate world to be involved as well. And in the long run, I found my focus back to my origin, and that's the legacy I was born in, regarding the rainforest and the reforestation, and just really actually listening to what nature has to offer. And that is how I was raised, as well as the Western world, of course. And the older I get, and especially my banking experience, got me to see also there's a big gap we have to bridge. And I'm really thankful for those rebellious years, because that's how I actually went into banking, which gave me a lot of knowledge about how to bridge that. And I think in the legacy I was born in, that's exactly the part where what we were missing and what I can contribute from my perspective. If it would just be my legacy, I didn't have anything of myself to add on to that. Yeah, and I think especially the people that know me, they hear me say this more often, but to make it really tangible, like for me as a banker, a lot of the innovation projects like we do with our family, or what Nava does, or what Arif does, like what we all try to do to contribute to the world, to me it's crazy that as a banker I can finance so many businesses, but when it actually comes to innovative stuff that goes back to the core of our existence, they are not bankable. And it's crazy that an apple in the supermarket actually has a value to us in the Western world, but the tree that grows the apple doesn't have a value. And to me, that's crazy. And probably if I put it out to you like this sounds crazy to you too, but it's the reality in the Western world. And yeah, that's where I'm standing, I can contribute to bridge the gap between those two worlds. And for me, a big driver in that is I'm really thankful of my uncle who started this legacy 40 years ago, and especially his reasons and his motivation why he did that. And I guess you have a video ready, and it would be nice
I
for
do.
yeah, just let him tell it himself, because for me it's a really touching video, because I really feel the message, and this is also what I was brought into.
Okay, well, thank you for that, Renée. So we're now going to run a six-minute video presented by Renée's uncle, Renée Smits, and here it goes. Just bear with me while I click on a few buttons, and hopefully we won't have any buffering problems, and enjoy the video.
My name is Renée Smits. I've been working in Indonesia here for the last 35 years for the environment and a better future for our planet and for the orangutans. You don't need words when you talk to animals. You can just see in their eyes, you can feel the connections, and actually words make it sometimes harder. Sometimes you just need to follow this gut feeling, and it can tell you an awful lot. These orangutans, when they look into your eyes, they figure you out within a minute who you are, what you are. They look deep into your soul. People kept catching these orangutans and selling them. So we had to go to the root problem, which is deforestation and the palm oil and the loss of these beautiful rainforests for illegal logging. There is, through corruption, some oil palm companies, partly foreign-owned, are cheating the local people out of their land by bribing certain leaders of them. They are cutting down a virgin rainforest, which is strictly forbidden against the law. And they are being supported by permits from the government here. And the army comes and threatens the local people that stand up for their own land rights, and they are thrown in jail. So what we passed is a crime scene and a scene of great, great injustice. I basically came to the conclusion the only people that can save that forest are the ones that are living around that forest. But in order to make it worth for them, that forest needs to have a value. Only then the orangutans can also remain living there as part of that ecosystem. There is no single custodian. We are all custodians because we're all interlinked, and none of us can do it without the other. What I try to do is combining things from different disciplines. I'm always looking out of the box. If I hit a wall, well, either that wall has to come down or I have to go around it. It's these approaches that keep me on my feet and keep me going. If you don't shoot, you will never hit a target. So I just have to shoot. If I achieve it or not, without trying, there's no hope. Well, the reforestation schemes that we have set up have contributed to improving rainfall, the flow of water to the fields, stabilizing climate, bringing in a variety of products that can secure an income so that you don't put all your eggs in one basket. We have created jobs from the reforestation, the wood for house building, and in various ways have demonstrated in quantitative terms that yes, taking care of nature is taking care of yourself. How to ensure that all this hard work is not for nothing? I've been investing in people. I've been trying to motivate 1,150 Indonesian foresters, maybe some 50 PhD students, and many of them still keep the principles that I taught them, or even though they're now on the level of Director General, they're President Directors of big state enterprises. We need to invest in young people, give them the right mindset. If you study ecology, you're looking at the most efficient system that exists. And the economy is just such a small abstract of the processes that run in nature. So economy should learn from the efficiency of nature, from these wonderful systems where everything is connected. If you can do that, there might be some sustainability for the future. Don't gamble with our planet. Take wise decisions and don't go only for the short term. Dare to be different. Followers are never going to change this world, and this world is in need of some serious change. What would I like to leave behind? A better world. That's all I want. A world that we can share, where the inequality is not so big, and where we understand that we only can make it all together.
Your mic is off, Michael.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had a microphone in and camera crisis just for a moment there. But anyhow, that was very inspiring. Now I'm going to call all our guests back on, and we're going to be reviewing a few media stories. And we'll start, I thought, with a piece that you saw, Arief. Jason Momoa, known to me as a major character in Game of Thrones, and indeed in Aquaman, I believe he played. has written a piece for CNN, "From the Ashes We Rise, How Nature Can Still Heal." Can you just tell us a little bit about this article, Arif?
Absolutely. It's one of the most inspiring articles I've seen in a while, because I think Jason Momoa was really speaking passionately, and it was an opinion piece on CNN about how after the tragedy in Lahaina and the fires, there was a lot of learnings that actually the indigenous species weren't there, that were more tolerant of fires and these kind of cycles that actually we must accept in our economies and in all our structured thinking, where we think we have advanced in many ways, and yet there's so much indigenous social knowledge, indigenous ecological knowledge that we need to catch up on. And because we have been out of balance with this, there's 1 million plus species at risk now globally. And but then the whole article goes to the UN Decade of Ecosystem Restoration, and this really exciting collective that has come together, and these 7 different flagships that are pushing an indigenous-led process of ecosystem restoration, and how we all need to stand behind this indigenous knowledge and really support it. I mean, very much what Renee and Willie were speaking to before, and of course what Nava is doing. This is it, and this is just one more piece that I feel like Jason was really holding it. And Hawaii, I just found out that Jason is from Hawaii, which is really inspiring. And yeah, it's how can we all come together and learn how to think globally, act locally. We've been saying it for a long time, but it really is true, right? We need a collective set of principles that we all follow, standards that we all abide to, and then we need to act locally. And I think it was beautiful that he was speaking from the ashes of Lahaina, how Lahaina was really bringing back all this indigenous knowledge, and that's what we all need to do. So that was really exciting for me, and they grow bamboo in Hawaii, so I was really excited about that. And yeah, it's one more testament to the indigenous-led restoration process actually being the foundation, as Renee was speaking about before, to the future of our economy, to the future of our society. And we need to listen to these broken record messages that keep playing, and we don't necessarily listen, do we?
Indeed. Okay, well, thank you for that, Arif. And Nava, on a similar theme, you saw a piece um, in landmark ruling, Indonesia's indigenous people win rights to millions of hectares of forest. Could you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So this happened 10 years ago, a little bit more than 10 years ago. And it really paved the way legislatively to return rights of managing a lot of the forests back into the custody of indigenous people. However, 10 years fast forward where we are now, although millions of hectares have already been mapped, and the mapping process has been a huge movement across the country, only 14% has been recognized of the government. And this is the fight on the ground is still very much real and happening. And this is where I think the possibility for, like Arif was saying and Renee was saying, these networks of life need to come together to really support this move, because a lot of the knowledge is within the hands of the people who tend to the land on a daily basis, and they have the ancestral knowledge. They have been custodians of these forests and lands for tens of thousands of years. And here we are in a position where we really need to find that humility, I think. We can have all the facts. Science can show us all the statistics and show us how deep of a mess we're in. But until we step out of the mode of thinking because we have the statistics and the facts, that we have the solutions, and really humble down and really open to learn and observe and understand and support in the right ways, in the right places, that this is the possibility that is before us now. And everybody has a part to play, no matter what sector you're in, no matter where you're standing in the situation. You have something to offer, but it takes really stepping back and orientating yourself in the bigger picture. Where do I stand in this situation? And if I really want to contribute to the continued sustained life on this planet, what can I offer? And this is, I think, the brightest minds of today need to think in those terms and really harness their faculties, their human faculties, and be of service to this sort of united idea, like whether it's from the finance side, whether it's you're a small business person, just facilitating the process, facilitating the channels to market, or facilitating, as Willie Smits put it so eloquently, creating the spaces and environments to empower the local leaders and the young minds, the youth of the future who are part of these communities, and give them the tools to prepare them to make the right decisions. And yeah, yeah, it's a big process. As speaking from someone who's facing the reality on the ground, it's complicated because you're dealing with layers of damage already done, not just in terms of the landscape, but psychologically too, with the people, and creating this environment where the possibility for them to grow into their full potential and be inspired to see what they have, and want to be guardians and want to learn the tools that they need is a whole process in of itself. And what the article is saying is like, yes, here's the path is open, but the work on the ground is immense, and we need to get to work now.
Okay, all right. Well, thanks for that. And Rune, you've got your money man hat on, and you spotted a piece in Technology Review, growing signs of trouble for global carbon markets. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it seems like the attention of the corporates are moving away from carbon markets and into inflation and hike of energy prices and war and logistics and stuff like that. So the carbon markets have been and not got the attention that it deserves. But and so the prices also, when the demand and supply are not in balance, then the price is affected. So the prices of the global carbon markets have taken a hit since 2022. And still are on low levels. So we need to get the carbon markets back on track, and it's a lot of initiatives in that direction, because we need the carbon markets to help us financially and to really put the price. And what is the price? That is the big question. And it's too low at the moment, and it's always been too low. But what is the future price then? what can we expect from the future price in 5 years, in 10 years, for example? So a lot of more attention, I think, is needed into the carbon market. Either it's removals or offsets or degradation or to stop deforesting and transform the nature-based ecosystem back in the quantity that we need for us humans. And what is that value? That is the big question.
Okay, and all right, and how do we answer that question?
That's also a good question. How do we do that? One, of course, the most likely one is that it's been decided of someone. For example, regulative bodies or on a global agenda to define more values or more directional values by forbidding and pricing. And the ETS is political. It's a political instrument, so we can decide whatever price we want. Really, and it matters how urgent is it, how much damage will come in the later years if we don't do anything now, and what is the price of doing now compared to this destruction later. And that's obvious, of course. For us, it's obvious, but for the communities and the financial decisions, it's not so obvious.
Yeah, I mean,
business as usual is the most obvious thing.
Yeah, it's a huge issue, isn't it? So, I mean, I think we can all agree that rainforests are important. I don't think that. I mean, we're slightly preaching to the converted on the ESG show, but I would have hoped that there are not many people who wouldn't accept that rainforests are important. They're not only important to the people who live in them, but they also act as kind of like the lungs for the planet. I read that about they provide 20% of the planet's oxygen. And by the process of photosynthesis, not only do they create oxygen, they also suck out carbon dioxide. They also limit the Earth's reflectivity and stabilize ocean currents, wind, and rainfall patterns. They contain 80% of the world's terrestrial biodiversity, including over 30 million species of plants and animals. And that means they are potential medicines. There are potential medicines yet to be found lurking in rainforests. And they also maintain the water cycle by sending vapor into the air, making it rain, not just locally, but thousands of miles away. So they're important. But there are also profits in deforestation as well. There are short-term profits in knocking down rainforests and putting farmland there in its place. So what's the answer to that? Do we somehow encourage local businesses to put the needs of the planet and indigenous populations ahead of the quest for profits? How do we do that? How do we encourage businesses to put the needs of the planet ahead of their short-term profits? Any thoughts about that?
I think we'll have thoughts about that, yeah. You go.
Okay, who wants to go first?
No, I think, you know, the concrete systems and supply chains and value chains and the steel and metal supply chains and value chains and the oil supply chains and value chains, you know, are all very well established systems that are cost effective. The qualities are clear, and if we want to create nature-based solutions, like taking a bunch of bamboo and like in Trondheim where Rune is, you know, they made beautiful multi-story buildings out of wood instead of concrete as a carbon sink and a nature-based solution. And so we can do this, but we do have some serious competition right? That in concrete, in steel, that we need, but we really do have to understand how all of this plays in, be it SDGs, be it climate change mitigation and adaptation, any of the frameworks of looking at what logically makes sense. Nature-based solutions gives 30% of the solution without us doing anything, and it actually could do more. So we should back behind that, right? And the economics should be subsidized, as Rune was saying, to make that 30% go up as high as possible.
Okay.
I totally
Does anybody?
agree. I totally agree, but I also think it's not one way or the other way. And yes, rainforests are very important, and we are all specialized in them, so that's why we feel really aligned with the rainforest. But every different kind of climate is important in their own way. It's about understanding it. And what Rune was talking about, to me, it's also a really serious concern about the carbon credit market. To start with, all our farmers have carbon credits, but we don't make them use it. And that's sometimes the things people in the Western world don't understand. We actually try to build a business model to create more value for the rainforest so that it has more value than a plantation will ever have. And at that point, for me, it's nice to have carbon credits as a awareness for the Western market. But on the ground, it doesn't add anything. It's just another source of income, which is temporary. It's not going to be permanent. It will never work on the long term. It's just an incentive to get them moving. And for us, it's important in our family projects that they don't use the carbon credits. They have them more as a reputational thing. But we do not make them sell it because the income they get from the rainforest is already enough to cover their needs. And that's the point. That's a cultural thing. And I maybe Nava or Arif wants to respond to that, how they experience it from the ground. But in my experience, that's enough, because the culture is about living in harmony with nature in a way they can provide for their families. So if the basic needs are covered, they don't feel the need to sell the carbon credits for extra money, because that's not the basic or their most important value of doing. It's their life and their family and the culture. That's what's important to them. So do we need to stimulate that more? I'm not sure. Yes and no, but in a way that suits the needs of the people and not what we Westerns think is needed, which is we only think in money, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the problem. Everything is measured in money and the cash flow on the bottom line.
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean,
I think that.
No, you
go ahead, Michael.
No, you take it. I'm sure what you've got to say is more interesting than me. So you go ahead.
No, I think all the situations at large are pointing to that one thing, is like a shift in purpose, in mindset, as Willie Smits put it, needs to happen, and in every, in every part of the picture, and to see the bigger picture, that we are interconnected, that the financial world that has gotten hung up on the carbon market, in a way, they have overemphasized the importance of carbon sequestering as the sole. It has become the sole thing that will save the earth and mitigate climate change. But that's not true. It's just been the thing that makes the most sense, that can be put a dollar sign on. And we really need to go back into whole systems thinking, entire ecosystems, and that's on the ground, and also in these human networks, within the human structures that we've created. It has to happen, and I'm not sure how it's going to happen without just some kind of evolution in consciousness. That's what it comes down to. I think that we have to really think in different terms.
All right. So we need an evolution in consciousness. So I live in England, okay, and 13% of Britain is covered in forest. But 2,000 years ago, nearly all of the country was covered in forest. It was a forest land, and over those 2,000 years, and you go back to the Roman times, the process of deforesting England has been going on for 2,000 years. But really, the country is what it is today because it's knocked down a lot of trees. Partly, if it hadn't knocked down all those trees, you know, England's quite a rich country, it's a fairly wealthy country. It wouldn't be if it hadn't done all that. So, but if England, along with the rest of Europe, hadn't engaged in so much deforestation, maybe there would be less of a problem today. Because so do the Europeans, should the Europeans that have deforested in the past, it's a little bit rich perhaps for them to turn around to places like Indonesia or whatever and say, you've got to stop knocking down trees, even though we used to do it. Is there a debt there? Should the countries that have already engaged in deforestation pay other countries not to do what they did?
I want to say really brutally no. I don't think one is to blame. It's not the European market. There's a demand there, which drives the local market on the ground. But the reasons why we do it are different. And it's not one region or one person or one company to blame. I think it's a big gap of not understanding each other and our needs. That's what causes the problem. We Westerns really lost touch with nature. We don't even, like children here don't even know where an apple comes from. And while in Asia, they really know where their base is. They live in nature, with nature. They don't even know anything else. So as long as I'm as a Western, keep putting my needs on that market that's not working that same way, I give the incentive of money in a culture where that doesn't work, but where I'm like pushing them to act on it. So that's where reforestation starts. It's about, in the end, it's all about human needs. I want to provide for my family. That's what I want as a Western. I want to have something that has to come from Asia. And the Asians just want to provide for their family. And the living conditions are getting worse. It's getting more expensive. So they need more money. And they only see one solution that's offered from us, which is more money if they provide this. And therefore, they need to do some deforestation. Was that the purpose of the Western? No. Was it the actual purpose of the local people? No. It's just how things work out because we have different needs and we don't understand each other's needs. And I think we do not embrace our differences and our knowledge. And if we could actually find each other and embrace the differences we have by understanding them, we don't have to understand them completely, but respect them enough to make it cooperative. I think that should be the solution.
Well, I certainly strongly believe that there's a lot to be said for convergence of different cultures, that we can learn so much from each other, which isn't really a fashionable idea at the moment. Okay, so there's a couple of topics there that, and we're well over, so perhaps we can discuss them quite briefly. But one of them I wanted to talk about is making nature profitable, the profit from nature, which is something you and I have discussed in the past, Renée. And also, if we could perhaps just touch very, very briefly on this idea of the Western mindset being quite different. And I know, Arif, you've got some quite strong feelings about that. So can I hand over to you just for a moment, Renée, just to talk about making nature profitable, and then I'll invite all of you to interject where you feel is appropriate.
Yes, sure. And to me, it's something I'm really proud of, like what we did. We built this ecosystem where we do not look at the apple. We don't look, like, to come back to the same metaphor. We don't look at the apple that actually has a value here, but we go back to the core, like what is actually needed to make the ecosystem work for itself again. Like, we destroyed a lot, but if I go back to the basic, like for example, if we reforest, we always start with the Arenga palm. It's a shadow tree that we need, and the shadow tree is needed, like the roots go very deep. It takes a lot of water in. So it's a really stable tree that also prevents forest fires. So that's always what we start with. But at the same time, it provides an income for the local people. And we need the local people to go back to the deforested land to make it actually like relivable again. So we need to provide them with an income. Now, the Arenga palm gives a juice which we produce into sugar. And it's actually a healthy sugar. I'm not going into the details now, but it's a healthy sugar. And they use it for cooking locally, but it's also exported to Western countries as well. So it provides them with a stable income. With the income, they can live on the land again and provide for their families. And then we start planting different species that bring different harvests in different seasons. So all year round, they have something that comes from an authentical rainforest that contributes to reforesting, at the same time provides an income, and at the same time, they have a new living environment where they are supposed to live with their family. So it's a healthy environment to live in. And by combining that and putting in some education, and we make it like a cooperative living, so they actually strengthen each other with the different villages that they are in, they regain the ownership of the land. That's the main purpose. They have to regain ownership to feel responsible for nature. And then on top of that, they have to have a income that's stable enough with different types of harvest that they can sell all year round to provide a stable income, which a plantation will never offer a stable income because it's seasonal. So once they start living that, like I can tell them, but then it will never reach to the point that they will not believe me until they see it. So when they start to experience that, the rainforest itself gets more value than a plantation will ever have. And we as Westerns actually profit from that, because at this point, like I was talking to Nava this morning, we were talking about the rainforest. If we put the effort in a more sustainable way in an ecosystem like what we do, by looking at what resources do I have that actually belong in this ecosystem and taking the profit out of that in multiple ways, not only financial, health-wise, nature-wise, oxygen-wise, like in every profitable way you can think of it. But at this point, like we make alternatives to palm oil. I think everyone knows that when they look at our name, Smits, you will probably relate it to alternatives of palm oil that we produce. At this point, I thought this morning with Nava, I said it's around 132 synonyms we have for palm oil in our products in the Western world on packaging. I just looked it up and it's over 200 at this point. But at the same time, if you look at the rainforest and the dynamics of it, there's at least that I know of 120 alternatives for palm oil that we can use. But just because the Western world doesn't, at this point, doesn't see the value, so is not willing to pay for it a fair price, we cannot process all of them. But we know there are at least 120 alternatives for palm oil. So if we would put the efforts into actually looking at the alternatives and with that, protecting the rainforest that we actually need way more than the plantations, instead of covering up what is there with different names and putting our energy in there, because there's a lot of money already put in there. That's also an economic driver. While in the long term, we don't need the economic drivers, because economic drivers will just drift us more and more away of our existence and brings us more trouble.
Okay, so does anybody want to come in on that? So, rainforest plantations are seasonal. Rainforests don't have to be seasonal. I think you said that, Renée. Does anybody want to come in on that, on those points there?
Yeah, just a quick note. I think I've set myself up for an interesting challenge because I am actually working with local farmers who own plantations, coffee plantations. And what I'm trying to incentivize is the diversifying of these coffee fields and bring in the diversity, bring in the layers that an ecosystem needs to thrive. And it's an interesting process. So just quickly, so our terms and conditions, the deal with the farmers is that we provide seedlings, and with terms and conditions, we provide seedlings and support on the field, help them troubleshoot problems that they're facing. And our terms and conditions are at the moment very simple. It's like no chemical anything. They must intercrop and have diversity of productive plants, and also plant at least 2 of every endemic forest tree species that are on our list, and we provide those seedlings as well. And so this is where the mentality, the damage that has been done, the conditioning of how money is made, how you make a living. And they have been conditioned by the needs like of the outside world, by the markets that have been imposed on them, to drift away from their traditional way of life that has always like valued balance and harmony at the core. And that's a philosophy that's embedded in the culture. But because of this other economic drivers, and they have shifted away, and now to bring them slowly back to remembering what they already have and how they have always lived in balance is an interesting process, because I have to now play different cards, and I have to incentivize them again to see that actually, if you look at the numbers, you're actually ending up minus from coffee alone. First of all, you're only connected to the commodity market that doesn't value quality. It only wants quantity. So there you have like then they just try to make that quantity by pouring chemicals, fertilizer and other things. And and to show them that if you have, like Renee said, a diverse ecosystem from which you can find a living, you add that up and you actually are making a much better living. You'll have more abundance, and you can actually build on this base, and really work in alignment with how nature actually works. And these are thriving forest systems. And so that's my little addition to that. But it's a journey.
All right, well,
It's not easy on the ground.
Okay, so that's fascinating. Okay, so we've talked in the past about a sort of like a cultural divide, a Western mindset being quite different, an Anglo-Saxon mindset, and I'm trying to remember the phrase you used to describe it. I think you called it Anglophone. Could you just explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's an Anglophone, and it's many different kingdoms of the past in their creation of colonies and control of other places to expand their logic, also forced their logic and their lack of understanding on many communities. And that happened in South America, well, in the Americas in its own way, in Asia it's in its own way. And I was just in Africa, in Zambia, shedding my prejudice every hour on what I thought was a simple people, and they were the most sophisticated, most beautiful people on earth that I'd ever met. And I think we a lot of the times different programs have gone to communities assuming that they can help them and build their capacity, and actually not value what they have. And we have to remember that actually the collective, which here in Indonesia we talk about gotong royong, right? It's community build, it's consensus to work together. When these farmers are together, all of them have 4 PhDs, in their brain. It's like a mental map of their landscape, socially, economically, ecologically, and more importantly than all 3 of those is spiritually. Literally, they are all in one spirit. When they are together, when they're not sliced up and divide and conquer happens to them, right? And that's a genius that we can tap into in many ways in the future, be it AI, be it structuring, systems thinking, etc. We can take all that and actually work with this local genius of this landscape. You take those people, you put it in 5 landscapes down, sure, they don't have the same genius anymore, but they are the geniuses of their landscape. And there's so much that we have to value, and we start by valuing what the rich knowledge that they do have. And that will actually drive so much more success than what has happened so far. So yeah, I think if we, I mean, it's really funny. Renee, I don't know if you know this, but in Flores, this photo behind me is from Flores. There's the 3 siblings. There's aren, Arenga pinnata, bamboo, and a canopy legume species called phi. And so that's the 3: the shallow root, the medium root, and the deep root. The arenga, the sugar palm, is the medium root that is critical to work together. And guess what, Nava? Right next to it is Bajawa coffee, and it's some of the best coffee. And so you see, just in this conversation, we already have a biodiversity of approaches that actually has come together in indigenous logic systems without any of us doing anything, and that's rich, and we can work with that.
And that's profit indeed. And to make it really blank from the Western perspective, like we lost touch. So we seek the solution in technical and innovation stuff because we just simply lost touch with nature. And I have a great video on my LinkedIn. So if you're curious, look at it. But I have this video of one of our farmers climbing up a tree to actually tap the arenga palm to get the juice. And that's something as a Western, none of the people I know here will ever be able to do that or even understand how to do that. Like these types of living and working with the environment is unique. And we will never make it if we don't embrace those differences.
Okay, so what I thought I would do...
One question. If only a thought that those communities get an offer, a lot of money, but is it a dilemma to be nature-based or to fire up the rainforest to plant different species, and for some reason economical? Is it a dilemma? Is it something that happens, or some choices that have to be made sometimes?
It doesn't have to be a dilemma. That's the whole point. It's a mindset dilemma.
Yeah.
We as Westerners cannot believe that we don't need technique or innovation to come to a solution. We don't understand that it only takes getting back in touch with the core of our existence.
Yeah.
Just by looking, for example, at the video of one of the farmers we work with climbing up the tree, you'll have so much respect of what he's doing. You'll be like, damn, you're really climbing up bare feet in that tree. How do you do that? But it's normal to them. But to us,
if that person get $1 million, if we can burn down your forest and do something else with it, what about them? Is it tempting, or is it? Yeah.
You have to give 2 million for them not to burn it down and to plant beautiful coffee and arenga pinnata and bamboo and do beautiful things. And yes, we can have certification.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think that's the point. I think we have to do it. You know, the people who are doing it and who have the pieces of the puzzle. I mean, like Willie Smith says, you have to dare to go for the long term. And here we are, and then it's networking, then it's seeing where at what points can we collaborate, where can we support each other, where can we make an example that this can work and can be more profitable than the extractive modes of producing.
Yeah. Because maybe it's some kind of a different mindset then. Because in the Western part here now, we're talking about this business as usual and this short-term bias, that the value of this short-term effort is so much greater in our brain than a lot more in 10 years.
Which is such a shame. Like our first reforestation project my uncle did is called Samboja Lestari. It's 1,800 hectares of tropical rainforestry restored. I think we were the first in the world to actually succeed in that. But then if I tell you it took us 30 years.
Yeah, 30 years.
30 years. But now, if you look at the map, There's rain, there's biodiversity, there's income, there's profit in so many ways, so much abundance in that piece of land that we are copying this model and we're getting quicker. Like we just started a new one, which is going to be, if it happens out as we calculated, and probably it will be in 10 to 12 years. But we have to start somehow. We have to have the patience to let nature do its job and get back into the cycle. But yeah, it was 30 years. So in 10 years, we're not going to solve it if we're not willing to wait 30 years to see it bloom.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
we don't have 30. We don't have 30 years more.
We don't, but I hope the next generations will.
But I mean, there's this concept, net current value, when you look at future income and you discount it by rate of interest to get a net current value. Maybe that's a flawed concept. I don't know. Look, what I thought we would do is I thought I'd give you a minute or so each to make your key points. Are you okay with that? And Renée, I'm afraid you're next to me. I'm going to ask you to go first. So can I give you a minute the floor is yours for a minute. And when you've finished, I'll minimize you and hand over to Arief, who's next to me, then Rune, and then I'll ask Nova to finish off. So Renée, the mic's with you.
I think I already said so much, but I think in the core, it's just about daring to see the differences and the things we can actually add value on from our perspective, but also see that there's a piece of the puzzle that needs to be filled in by someone else. And I think,
Okay.
yeah, I just want to leave it with that.
No, that's fine. Nice and succinct. Arief, can I hand over to you?
Thank you, Michael. Yeah, I just wanted to speak to this photo for a second. These are communities that are making 20 plus ton per day of these strips, right? When they're in full hustle bustle. And so one bamboo village system, which is these amazing farmers are a part of, can produce 6,000 tons of that strip every single year from 2,000 hectares, and 10,000 ton of byproduct that for now we create pellets from it, right? And briquettes. And so that's bioenergy. And we can pull the arenga pinata sap actually to make very good wine and to make sugar, and have all of these ecological non-timber forest products. And so non-timber forest products is something that we all have to think about and understand as a global community. We need to restore our degraded lands. The Bamboo Village model is one amazing solution. We're looking for many partners. So reach out to us, work with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arief. And Rune, I'd like to give you 60 seconds of fame.
Thank you. We need to take the nature more into the financial decision and into account. That's for sure. Now we have done the carbon for 30 years, and now it's time to see what the nature itself can provide to us. And for example, I'm discussing now the agriculture sector here in Norway, and we are importing 60% of all our food. We are importing, and we need now to see how that food also is produced and make and hopefully make some changes to more sustainable, also nature-based agriculture of the food that we import. Coffee from Nava, for example. We have to pay, or if that capex or opex is larger for sustainable products, then we have to pay a little bit more. And I guess most of us are willing to do that.
Okay, thank you for that, Rune. And finally, Nava, over to you.
I'll keep it very short. I think I just want to remind everybody who's watching, whether you're in the investment world, in the financial world, or working, on solutions, that we really need to move out of the mindset of lack and realize that if we truly align our practices with nature, nature is generous. Nature is abundant. You plant one seed, you get thousands in return. And we align our practices in all our industries with nature. I think that's the best bet that you can make on a sustained future for all life on planet Earth.
All right. Well, thank you very much for that, Nava. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for watching.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.